Hello and welcome to Mutt's American Crime. I'm your host, the Celtic Mutt, and today we will be discussing the first, the person to be executed first by lethal injection in the state of Nevada on December the 6th, 1985. His name, Carroll Edward Cole. He was a 47-year-old serial killer who was convicted of killing at least 14 people, although he admitted to doing the deed to at least 50, but was convicted of only 14. His parents, who play an important role in all of this, were Laverne Cole, his father, and his mother, Vesta. Many of the sources can be found, if you wish. They will be linked at the bottom of the podcast. Carroll Edward Cole was born on May 9th, 1938 in Sioux City, Iowa. 1 year later, his sister was born, and the family moved when his father got a job at the shipyards in San Diego, California, before being drafted in 1941 to serve in World War II. By all reports, they had a fairly normal life up until that point. It was at this point, however, that Mother Vesta decided faithfulness was not her cup of tea, if you will. She began to tout about town, bringing Edward with her, or Eddie, as he was called. Now, the odd thing that I have found was that there was nothing said about the daughter being brought. Simply that the then 5-year-old Eddie was brought, and would often threaten Eddie with physical harm should he ever divulge the fact that she was having these illicit affairs with various men. She would literally go into the bedroom while Eddie was left in the living room, the next room over, quite frequently. Not only that, but Vesta was very fond of dressing Eddie as a little girl and making him serve her girlfriends tea at their little tea parties, quote unquote, where she would frequently refer to Eddie as mommy's little girl. Talk about your psychological damage, ladies and gentlemen. I'm By age 7, the beatings by Mother stopped due to Carroll entering first grade and the father returning home from the war. Playmates, however, began teasing him about his quote-unquote girly name, Carroll. At one point, he blacked out and woke up to find he had strangled the family's pet and began fantasizing about eliminating his mother and females that would cross his path. In 1946, at the age of 8, after swimming at the Richmond Yacht Harbor with a group of boys from his school, he waited until schoolmate Dwayne, and that is the only name that was ever put into the police report, was alone and held Dwayne underwater until he was no longer with us. Dwayne was one of the peers who had been ruthlessly and unrelentingly teasing Carroll about his name. Now, the thing with that was when the police investigated that, Dwayne was found to simply have been a victim of accidental drowning. This is where I personally think the system began to fail Eddie. But you'll see why very, very shortly that I believe the system had completely failed Eddie Cole. At the age of 14, in February of 1953, Eddie was ranked genius with an IQ of 152, but his grades were an average of a D plus by high school. He was burglarizing liquor stores and drinking heavily. He dropped out midway through his junior year, and began taking up odd jobs around town. At the age of 18, he worked briefly at a Richmond factory. Still at the age of 18, he decided that wasn't going to work for him, so he joined the Navy. You would think maybe the Navy would straighten him out, but that was not the case. Drinking and theft of government property got him time in the brig. He would often steal a weapon from the armory, drive down to San Diego, where he would, by his own admission, take pot shots with the firearm at traffic on the interstate. Eddie had problems. But still, the time in the brig did him no good. December the 4th, 1958, at the age of 20, San Diego PD, he was arrested in San Diego on suspicion of burglary and auto theft. It got him a discharge from the Navy. He returned home to his parents in Richmond. Mother would abuse him by rubbing his nose into his failure in the Navy. Mother of the Year there, ladies and gentlemen, if you want my opinion. Vesta was absolutely the Mother of the Year. Note sarcasm here. 1958 to 1960, remained with his family and worked odd jobs and was arrested a number of times for minor crimes. June 1st, 1960, at the age of 22, he approached two couples in a parked car at Lover's Lane and attacked them with a hammer. He got away with this behavior is what I'm saying, until June 28th, 1960, still at the age of 22. So what are we talking? We're talking 27 days later. He was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon and sentenced to a mere 30 days on the county work farm. Sorry, I'm thinking, assault with a deadly weapon would have been a little more severe crime than just a 30-day stint in the work farm. But I could be wrong. January of 1961, again, still at the age of 22, he flagged down a Richmond police car and told the patrol officer of his urge to grape and strangle. The officer suggested voluntary self-committal. Now, I get that you can have urges, and as long as you don't act on them, there's really nothing the police can do. But I would have thought that the officer would have said, here, get in the car. I will personally take you if you're having these kinds of urges. Again, I see that as a failure of the system to identify a potential situation brewing. But again, this is Mutt's opinion, and nothing else. If you disagree, please feel free to drop me a message in the chat. I will happily discuss it with you. February the 2nd of 1961, again, still at the age of 22, he entered Napa State Hospital for a 90-day observation and treatment. He admitted to a happy childhood and refused to discuss the bad aspects of his life. So basically, he lied about mommy's abuse. The man had mommy issues, folks. Let's face it. If your mama's dressing you at the age of between 5 and 7 in girls' clothes and referring to you as mommy's little girl, you are definitely having mommy issues. I'm sorry. I don't care what you say. That is exactly what that is. It sounds to me like mom needed to be hospitalized for some serious abuse issues. I would have loved to have looked into her childhood. But that's a whole nother story. On March 21st, 1961, at the age of 21, the hospital staff made a diagnosis of antisocial psychopath personality disturbance and recommended he be discharged. Oh, wow. Okay, so we're looking at antisocial sociopathic personality disturbance, and the hospital recommends he be discharged, then apply for outside psychiatric treatment or voluntary admission to the state hospital due to his sadistic, abnormal sexual tendencies. You're already in a hospital, and that hospital recommends you go to a different hospital. That makes me question the one you're in. Again, I repeat, as I did at the beginning of this system dropped the ball. I'm not excusing his behavior. Not at all. Don't hear that. I am not excusing Eddie's behavior in the least. I am saying that his behavior stemmed from his mother's abuse and his father's absence, but was exacerbated by the failure of the system to treat him properly for his existing condition. My opinion. But let's move on. March 25th of 1961, he was released from Napa. Okay. July 1961, at the age of 23, while serving 6-month sentence for auto theft, he requested psychiatric help. So he's asking for help. The man is actually legitimately asking to be helped. Um, November of 1961, at the age of 23, Judge Raymond Coughlin signed the committal order. Okay, so the judge signs the committal order on the 6th of October. On the 16th, he entered the state hospital. So 10 days later, he entered the state hospital, and Dr. Irwin Hart diagnosed him as a passive dependent person with a facade of independence and confession concerning sexual identification. Okay. So we've got a diagnosis. What are we going to do about it? We're going to jump to what we're going to do is we're going to jump to September 12th of 1962 and do absolutely nothing. At the age of 24, he transferred from Stockton State Hospital for further testing and treatment. The doctor who was only identified as I. Weiss noted that he seemed to be afraid of the female figure and cannot have intercourse with a woman, but must first unalive her before doing so. Weiss diagnosed Cole's condition as schizophrenic reaction of the chronic indifference type. Talk about a mouthful of a diagnosis. Somebody please explain that to me. I looked it up and could not find what that diagnosis would translate to today. That is just mind-blowing to me that was the diagnosis and without an explanation. Anyway, April the 19th, 1963, he was released with leave. He was released on leave, and in May, he ended up going home, by the way, in April of 63. But by May of that same year, mother bought him a bus ticket, and he headed to Dallas, Texas, to stay with his brother. His brother spent the next several weeks showing him around, and having a good time. July 15th of 63, at the age of 25, he attempted to eliminate himself with pills, but failed in the attempt. So what does he do? He strangles a woman and spent 4 days in a psychiatric ward. 4 days. 4 days. He eliminates himself, or tries to eliminate himself, fails, goes out, finds a woman, and unalives her, and then checks himself in for 4 days into a psychiatric hospital. November of 1963, at the age of 25, he marries Neville Billy Whitworth. Now, you would think, okay, marriage might calm him down. No. See, Billy, as she was known, was an alcoholic stripper. So you've got somebody who has issues with the female form marrying a stripper, an alcoholic stripper. I'm seeing I'm seeing automatic long-term failure. So yeah, this is gonna go from bad to worse. I'm just letting you folks know now. On August in August of 1965, at the age of 25, he's convicted. Excuse me, he's convinced. I apologize. He's convinced that Billy was partaking in sexual acts with men at the hotel where they were living. So what does he do? He sets the hotel on fire. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He thinks his wife is having multiple affairs, so he decides, we're just going to burn down the hotel. We're going to burn down the motel where we're staying. In August 19th, 1965 to be exact, he's indicted for arson of the hotel. Okay. March 1966, convicted and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for the arson. So he spent from, August to March on the indictment in prison or in jail. And then he's convicted and goes to prison for 2 years. Wow. On January 5th, 1967, at the age of 28, he's released and began drifting. So now we've got somebody out just wandering the streets who's obviously got some psychological issues, and nobody knows when or where he is and isn't keeping tabs on him. Alrighty then. April 1967, at the age of 27, Oklahoma City Court fined him $20 for vagrancy for pimping. So he was pimping somebody out. We're not quite sure who he was pimping out. I did search that out and was unable to find out if it was just one or if there were multiple. But he was pimping out a female, at least one. May 1967, at the age of 29, he invaded the bedroom of an 11-year-old girl in Lake Ozark, Missouri, and tried to strangle her in her sleep. Her screams and cries for help woke the neighbors, who called the police, and he was arrested. He pled guilty to a reduced charge and received a 5-year prison sentence. So that's attempted murk of an 11-year-old girl, and only gets 5 years in prison for it. Blows my mind. On May 1st, 1970, at the age of 31, he's paroled and drifted back to San Diego, then to Reno, Nevada, where he twice attempted to strangle women in bars, but both potential victims escaped. This just gets worse and worse. 9/19/1970, at the age of 32, he surrendered to Reno police and confessed his urges to murk women, and was detained and charged with disorderly conduct. Okay, so he surrenders to the cops and gets disorderly. That's usually what, 30 days in jail, maybe. On the 23rd of September 1970, committed to a state hospital at Sparks, Nevada, Dr. Felix Peebles diagnosed him with antisocial personality, with alcoholism, and compulsion to strangle and grape attractive women. That's his actual diagnosis, ladies and gentlemen. Not the ugly ones, just the attractive ones. I'm just saying. Some of their diagnosis and how specific they are with them just blows my mind. I'm sorry. It boggles the mind. September the 13th, 1970. Wait a minute. That was on September 23rd, 1970. Dr. Peebles recants his diagnosis and said Cole was a highly manipulative man who is utilizing his difficulties with the law and his threats of violence in order to acquire shelter when he is out of funds. And he was discharged and placed on a bus to Los Angeles, where he switched buses to go home to San Diego. So the doctor knows he's got these. So let me break this down. So more for myself than for you. He knows that the doctor knows that Edward is dealing with issues, but instead of treating those issues, he simply recants them and says that Eddie's using the system to gain shelter. Drop the ball much? May the 7th, 1971, at the age of 32, he met and strangled Essie Buck. He met and strangled Essie Buck and left her in his trunk overnight. Absolutely fantastic. Not really, I'm being sarcastic. May 9th, 1971, he discarded Essie in a dumpster on his 33rd birthday. Man, oh man. May 23rd, 1971, met and strangled a woman only known as Wilma. He buried her corpse somewhere outside of San Ysidro. I'm sorry. It remains undiscovered. The body of this poor woman, known only as Wilma, is still out in the desert in California. May 30th, 1971, at the age of 33, he strangles a third unknown victim. June 1971, served time for theft and drunk driving. Okay. March of 72, is released from prison. Unknown date, but at the age of 33, after driving to San Ysidro, he picked up two unknown women and murked one with a hammer, and the other was strangled. They were both buried in the desert, never to be found. So that's 3 out in the desert somewhere in California that this man has discarded, and their bodies are still not known the locations of. In the summer of 72, at the age of 34, he met and moved in with a barmaid named Diane Paschal. Neither were monogamous to each other. Again, we're not going to be looking at a happy marriage for long, I don't think, folks. In July of 73, he marries Diane. Okay, moves in with her. In the summer, so I'm assuming June probably, but by July he's married to Diane. In August of 74, at the age of 36, moved from San Diego to Las Vegas to begin a new life after many infidelities. On both counts, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, those infidelities did not go simply one way. They went multiple. They went in both directions, meaning both parties were guilty. On an unknown date at the age of 63, he found a job transporting coins from a local airport to the nearby casino. The temptation was too much, and he stole an entire shipment of coins and fled to Wyoming, leaving Diane back in Vegas. There's a true husband. I'm just saying that's top-notch husbandry right there. August of 75, at the age of 37, he met Marlene T.P. Hammer, with one M, after a night of partying. She suggested that they have sex. He strangled her and left her on the hillside, covered by an old sleeping bag. August 9th, 1975, at the age of 37, Marlene's body was found. He fled the state the next day. Alrighty then. That must have. Now, I'm not quite sure how he knew that the body had been found unless it had been reported in the news. I never found an article stating how he found out that the body was found so that he fled. If anyone knows, please feel free to drop a comment down in the comments. I would love to know exactly how he found out. I was unable to deduce this. On an unknown date, at the age of 37, went to detoxification center, stole a fellow patient's $1,500 check, and cashed it. Eddie, you're winning Citizen of the Year here, buddy. 1976, at the age of 38, charged with mail theft and jumped bail. So he's now a bail jumper, a thief, guilty of adultery, and multiple murks. Alrighty. Was captured a short time later with the charge of unlawful flight. He was charged with unlawful flight. On February 1977, at the age of 38, he was sentenced to 1 year in prison for the unlawful flight. The gaps in time just blow my mind. May 14th, 1977, at the age of 39, police discover the body of Kathleen Bloom, a white female, 26. She was a prostitute. He had strangled and jumped in a stranger's. He jumped, dumped in a stranger's backyard. So he dumped the body of this prostitute, Kathleen Bloom, into a stranger's backyard. July 19th, 1977, at the age of 39, he is jailed for car theft in Las Vegas. He made bail, then made his way to Oklahoma City. So he, again, sounds to me like he's going to jump bail. The night before Thanksgiving, 1977, he met a woman at a topless bar and agreed to spend the night with her. Woke up to find the woman dead in his bathtub and remnants of her feet and arms in his refrigerator. Her buttocks was found in a skillet on the stove. Eddie, are you suffering from cannibalism on top of everything else? The body was collected and dumped into the city dump, so he claims. March 8th, 1978, at the age of 39, he received a 6-month sentence plus 3 years probation. June 16th, 1978, at the age of 40, freed from jail, he reunited with Diane, his true love, the alcoholic stripper. December 25th, 1978, again at the age of 40, he is arrested for being drunk and also charged with a probation violation, released on $2,000 bond. Come on, he's celebrating the fact that him and Diane, the drunken stripper, got back together. Even I can see that, and I've only got one good eye. That's what happened. November the 8th, 1978, at the age of 40, he is arrested on unknown charges that were never reported to his probation officer. Okay. Again, dropping the ball, ladies and gentlemen. Charges weren't even reported to the probation officer. He was just arrested. In August, on the 27th of 1979, at the age of 41, met and strangled Bonnie Sue O'Neill, a white female, 39, after a night of sex, and she mentioned that she had to call her husband. He dumped her body in the garbage can in the back of the building. So that right there tells me that he had, it was the fact that she was cheating. She might have survived had she not admitted she needed to call her husband, is what I'm getting at. She may well have survived had she not admitted to cheating on her husband. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, he has a thing about his mother cheating on his father and abusing him to cover it up. So I'm thinking that's probably what was the catalyst for her getting murked. I'm just saying. September the 19th, 1979, at the age of 41, he strangles Diane Cole. Oh, poor God. Diane? No, not Diane, not the drunk stripper. A white female, 35, wrapped her in a blanket and stuffed her in a closet. A neighbor called the police, 8 days later, after she had spotted him digging a grave in his crawl space. Her death was later. Wait. Okay, I had forgotten about this part. Her body was later ruled death by alcoholism, aka alcohol poisoning. It has nothing to do with the fact that he strangled her and covered her in a blanket. None of that played into it. She died by alcoholism or alcohol poisoning, ladies and gentlemen. At least that's the official diagnosis. On an unknown date in 1941, returned to Vegas and found work as a truck driver for a religious charity. Oh my gosh. He's going to now drive truck for a church. I wonder how many bodies he can put in there, ladies and gentlemen. We never find that out, by the way. We don't find out what we. Yeah. I'm making my little taking my jabs. Sorry. November the 3rd, 1979, at the age of 41, he killed Marie Cushman, a white female, age 50, in the Kibash Hotel, and left her body in the room for the maid to find. Oh, instead of leaving a tip, why not leave a body? I'm just saying, what a stand-up guy. December 16th, 1979, at the age of 41, he married a female co-worker while on their honeymoon. They were pulled over and he was found to not have a valid driver's license. So after a name check, a warrant was pulled up for parole violations. He ended up in the medical center for federal prisoners. Okay, so parole violations automatically go to jail. He worms his way into the medical center there in the prison. And on the 4th of October, 1980, he's released and bused to Dallas. January 1984, at the age of 45, informed that his mother is dead. Now, at this point, it is said that while he's in the hospital, his demeanor completely changes and he becomes a much more compliant patient and prisoner. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that his abuser was no longer alive to continue the abuse should he run into her again. That's just my take on it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not a professional. I'm just telling you the way it looks to me. In February, on the 15th, so the day after Valentine's Day, 1984, at the age of 45, Nevada formally announces the intent to extradite him and try him on capital murder charges. March 30th, 1984, at the age of 45, he waived extradition. In other words, he didn't try to fight it. He just said fine. April 9th, 1984, at the age of 45, he's sent to Las Vegas. August 16th, 1984, 46, appeared before Judge Myron Leavitt and pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. December the 12th, 1984, at the age of 46, his penalty hearing convened before 3 judges, and the panel sentenced him to death. Okay? Upon getting his sentence, he actually thanks the judge, the head judge. He actually turns to the judge and says, "Thank you." November 6th, 1984, the age of 46, he is transferred from Las Vegas to Nevada State Prison. Okay, so that is on the 6th of October. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, November. The 6th of November, 1984. Literally 1 month and 1 year later, at the age of 47, Carroll Edward Cole, is the first man to be executed by lethal injection in the state of Nevada after lethal injection had become the sole method of execution in 1979. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have on the most misunderstood, what I think is the most misunderstood and possibly one of the most misdiagnosed serial killers in the United States. I would love to know what you think about any of this. Please feel free to drop your comments down in the comments and let's talk about it. I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to our next installment of The Mutt's American Crime. And until then, take care of yourselves, and if you have the chance, take care of someone else as well. And I will see you again very soon. Goodbye.